A woman in her late 70s, silver hair, steady eyes, finally decides to speak. After a lifetime of letting the songs do the talking, Emmylou Harris opens up about a friend the world still misses, John Denver. And what she shares isn't gossip or myth. It's something quieter, braver, and far more lasting. How one human being's kindness and clarity can shape another artist's life. If you've ever felt a voice lift you on a hard day, if a melody ever made you feel seen, this one's for you. Stay close, because by the end, you'll hear their music a little differently, and maybe your own story too. Now, let's wind it back. Emmylou Harris didn't arrive with fireworks. She grew up in a military family, the daughter of a Marine who survived captivity in Korea. That kind of history doesn't leave you untouched. It carves discipline into your bones and teaches you which kinds of silence matter. She chased drama in college at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, but when she picked up a guitar and heard the truth inside a folk song, something clicked. The voices that pulled her in were the ones that told the hard truths in plain language. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger. Not complicated, just honest. And that was enough to reroute her life. New York City in the late 60s was a strange paradise for a young singer. Coffee houses in Greenwich Village, rent that never quite added up. Late-night sets to small rooms where the applause felt more like a promise than a paycheck. Emmylou Harris worked, hustled, tried, failed, tried again. She made an early record, Gliding Bird, and learned the difference between a good start and a true beginning. There was love, there was heartbreak, there was a baby, and there was that constant tug of war between the stage and the need to build a safe world for a child. She did what good moms do, made hard choices. You can love the road and still know it's no place to raise a kid. That's wisdom, not regret. Then came the voice that would change everything for her. The tender drawl of Gram Parsons, a restless soul who'd already spent time in the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers. He didn't just hear her, he really saw her. He asked her to sing harmony, and two separate lives suddenly sounded like one conversation. When they made those records, GP and Grievous Angel, they weren't just chasing hits. They were building a bridge between country and rock that felt as old as the hills and as new as heartbreak. Her crystalline blend lifted his earth and ember tone, and his belief in her widened her sky. He became, in her words and in her heart, a kind of musical soulmate. But life doesn't owe us more time. Gram Parsons died young, and grief has a way of freezing the air in a room. Emmylou Harris could have curled inward. Instead, she took the spark he lit and carried it forward, not by pretending she wasn't broken, but by singing from the break. She stepped out under her own name with a clarity that still cuts. Pieces of the Sky introduced the world to a voice that could make a barroom hush and a hardened heart give itself away for 3 minutes and 27 seconds. From there came album after album, each one a new way of telling the truth. She brought the past with her, not as a costume, but as a compass. She didn't do it alone. She rarely wanted to. She surrounded herself with players who could match her grace and surprise her in the same breath. Rodney Crowell wrote and sang and led. Albert Lee made a Telecaster snap like lightning. There was the legendary harmony of three voices, Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris, braiding themselves into something so seamless it felt inevitable. She linked arms across genres and generations. Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Buddy Miller, Gillian Welch, Ryan Adams. The list reads like a map of American roots music. And there she is at the center, the quiet gravity that keeps everyone honest. And the songs, my God, the songs. Love that changes shape but never loses weight. Loss that refuses to be cleaned up for company. Longing that doesn't apologize for needing more from life. Redemption that shows up late, without makeup, and sits beside you anyway. When she made Wrecking Ball with producer Daniel Lanois, she let the air around her voice grow otherworldly, like mist over water at dawn. But underneath it, nothing changed. The core was still direct, the words still landed, the feeling still told you exactly where she'd been. If you're looking for shiny trophies, there are plenty. Major awards, big nights, halls of fame. If you want proof, it's there. But if you want to understand her, look where she spends her time when the spotlight moves. Dogs in Danger found a champion when she started Bonaparte's Retreat in Nashville. Veterans, disaster victims, people caught in the crossfire of history. She lent not just her name, but her voice and her hours. That's the kind of activism that doesn't trend but leaves a mark. Her life off stage? Complicated, like yours and mine. There were 3 marriages, each one teaching her something different about love and how to live beside another person without losing yourself. With Tom Slocum, she found her footing and welcomed her first daughter, Hallie. With producer Brian Ahern, she built a home and a second chapter, welcoming Megan and learning how to carry both family and career without breaking either one. With songwriter Paul Kennerly, she discovered new creative gears and the hard truth that passion doesn't always mean permanence. She's joked, with a mix of humor and candor, that she's a really good ex-wife, which is another way of saying she tries to leave rooms better than she found them, even when the door closes. So where does John Denver come in? Right here. There are artists whose public image becomes a mask. Then there are the rare ones who sing the same person they are. John Denver was one of those. The man who invited you to take the country roads home was the same man who'd stop and watch a sunset with you in complete silence, not trying to fill it with words. He believed in nature like some people believe in church, not as a tourist, but as a caretaker. He didn't talk about the earth like an issue. He talked about it like a friend. When their paths crossed, Emmylou Harris was rising, and John Denver was already a household name. But fame wasn't the currency they traded. They shared songs, stages, and the kind of trust that lets 2 voices find each other without effort. If you ever heard them sing together, you know. His clear tenor lifted like a kite. Her harmony slid in like wind you didn't know was there until the fabric pulled tight and the whole thing took flight. They didn't need a concept album or a marketing plan. A benefit here, a special appearance there. The moments were enough, the music did the rest. So why the silence? Why didn't she talk about him publicly for so long? Because some griefs are private, and some friendships are too precious to be turned into content. When John Denver died in that plane crash in 1997, the shock traveled fast and far. Think about where you were when you heard. Think about the quiet that fell in your chest. Now imagine you were his friend. Imagine hearing that news and sitting down because your legs didn't know what else to do. Emmylou Harris has carried many losses with grace, but this one had a particular ache. Sometimes the only way to honor a person is to hold them close and keep your mouth shut until the words grow worthy. Time passed. The world kept playing his records. Annie's song, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Rocky Mountain High. People took road trips and sang along with open windows. Hikers laced their boots and heard his voice when the light hit the ridge. Parents played him for their kids. And another generation learned what a real song sounds like. Through all of that, Emmylou Harris kept moving, kept making, kept tending her garden. And then, late in life, softer, but no less certain, she decided to talk. Not to set a record straight, not to reclaim a narrative, to say thank you. Here's how she puts it. In essence, John Denver gave her permission to stay herself. He didn't chase trends or bend himself into an idea that sold easier on Tuesday afternoons. He sang the stories he believed in. He loved the places that loved him back. He used a huge platform like a careful tool, nudging people towards stewardship without scolding them. That kind of example sinks deep. For Emmylou Harris, it was a reminder that the hardest thing in a business built on approval is to keep your center, that you can be generous without going blurry, that you can be kind without being naive, that you can be simple without being small. Let's pause here, because I want to ask you something. Who is your John Denver? Who made you braver just by being themselves? It might be a teacher, a cousin, a friend whose texts always sound like sunlight. Put their name in your mind for a second. You feel that warmth? That's the point. When Emmylou Harris talks about John Denver, she talks about a shared belief that music isn't just entertainment. It's a way of keeping people good. You don't need a lecture to remember you're part of something bigger. Sometimes you just need a voice that sings your better self back to you. And when she remembers him, she doesn't reach first for the stadiums or the chart numbers. She reaches for the small things, the way he listened, the way he kept his wonder intact even when the world asked him to be less sincere. That's rare. That's worth protecting. Does that mean he was perfect? Of course not. No one who tries hard at anything avoids mistakes. But sincerity isn't the absence of error. It's the presence of humility. John Denver owned who he was, and that transparency helped people trust him, and it helped Emmylou Harris trust herself. There's a quiet lesson in their story for every artist in any field. Talent is the spark, craft is the oxygen, and character is the chimney that keeps the whole fire drawing instead of smoking you out. You can be gifted and still get lost. You can work hard and still go sideways. But if you tend the person who makes the art tends to find its way home. Now let's talk about the courage it takes to say these things out loud at 78. The culture doesn't always make room for elder wisdom. It chases what's next and calls that new. But sometimes what's most needed is someone who has lived long enough to separate glitter from gold and will tell you, gently but firmly, to choose the gold. Emmylou Harris does that without preaching. She talks about gratitude like it's a practice. She talks about legacy like it's something you make daily, not a trophy you pick up at the end. And she knows the cost of this calling. Long tours, early flights, the way applause fills you up and then leaves you hungry in the quiet of a hotel room. The work of keeping friendships real when your schedule is unreal. The ache of parenting while the world pulls you in 100 directions. She hasn't done it perfectly. She doesn't pretend to. That honesty is part of why people believe her. When she says John Denver helped her stay true, you can feel how much discipline that truth has required. There's another layer here, the environmental thread. Long before climate became a headline, John Denver kept pointing us toward home. Rivers, forests, mountains. Like a friend tugging your sleeve, saying, look, not to scold, to invite. And Emmylou Harris, for all her focus on human hearts, has always understood that we're shaped by the places that hold us. You can hear it in the way she sings about leaving and returning, about roads and rooms and the quiet between them. Their work converges in this idea. Love of place is a love that makes you a better neighbor. So what does it mean for her to finally speak up now? It means she's letting us see the thread that runs under decades of songs. It means lifting a corner of the curtain not for drama, but for clarity. It means telling younger artists, find people who make you more yourself and hang on to them. It means telling the rest of us, the people who shape you deserve your words while you still have them. And listen, this isn't nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's a blueprint, collaboration without ego, curiosity without cynicism, ambition without cruelty. If you want to know how Emmylou Harris has stayed relevant across styles and eras, that's how. She keeps choosing what lasts. Do you feel it too? That tug? The urge to call someone, thank someone, pick up a dusty guitar, or sit with a song you loved as a kid and really listen this time? Good. That's the music doing its job. Before we close, a few final notes from the heart of this story. First, resilience doesn't look like never falling apart. It looks like making something beautiful from the pieces. Emmylou Harris has done that. Album after album, tour after tour. She lets the cracks show and sings through them, and we recognize ourselves in that courage. Second, community is an instrument. All those names, Rodney Crowell, Albert Lee, Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Buddy Miller, Gillian Welch, Ryan Adams, they aren't just credits. They're proof that when you make room for other voices, your own gets stronger. If you're building anything, a business, a family, a band, take the hint. Open the circle. Third, legacy is active. It's not just what people say after you're gone, it's what your work keeps teaching while you're still here. John Denver's songs are still opening windows in people's heads and hearts. Emmylou Harris's voice is still reminding us that tenderness can be precise, that sorrow can be elegant, that hope can sound like a grown-up and not a fairy tale. So, what happened next? She spoke, simply, gratefully. And in doing so, she gave us permission to be a little braver with our own thank yous, to hold on to the friends who point us toward the good, to keep the music, whatever your music is, true. If you've stayed with me this far, here's your invitation. Tonight, put on one song you loved from John Denver and one from Emmylou Harris. Let them talk to each other across your room. Hear how his tenor rises like clean air and how her harmony threads through it like a path. Feel how both of them ask you to look up, look out, and look within. And when the last note fades, do one small kind thing for the place you live. Water a thirsty plant. Pick up litter on your street. Call a friend who needed to be called yesterday. That's how we honor artists who taught us to love the world. We love it back in small, stubborn ways. Thank you for listening. If this story brought someone to mind, drop their name below. If a line in a John Denver song once kept you company on a tough day, tell us which one. If Emmylou Harris ever made you stand still in a noisy room and feel everything at once, share that moment. And if you want more stories like this, where music meets memory and the human parts of fame get a little room to breathe, hit like, tap subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. Until then, take care of each other and keep a song close.